Hello everybody and welcome back to Performance on Wheels. In today's video, my dad is going to go over and discuss, for whatever reason, why he chose to purchase this. The Audi A8L, this one specifically is a 2015 with the 4-liter twin-turbo V8. He has chosen some weird cars in the past, and this one really confuses me. I have no idea why he picked it. We're obviously performance car enthusiasts, and he chose this Audi A8 that's long.
17 feet long.
17 feet long, that is.
Yeah, so in today's video, guys, we're gonna unpack why I chose this car, but ultimately, if you're in the market, if you're intrigued, not only in the A8, but that 4-liter twin-turbo V8, which could include vehicles such as the S8 or the S6 or the S7 or the RS7, a lot of vehicles, we're going to be covering some of that stuff. So if you want to be an informed buyer, if you're just out watching videos on Audis, well, here we go. Let's get started.
My dad has gone from a Nissan GTR to a 2015 Jaguar F-Type R to a C5 Corvette to a G42 M240i, the brand new M240i, to this big long sedan. So we went from sports cars to a random sedan.
Let's not forget there's a Challenger in there somewhere too.
Oh yeah.
That's besides the point. So yeah, I've always been a sucker for a big car that can get down and boogie, meaning a big car that can impress others, the sleeper aspect. I've always been a sucker for that. I like big road trips, but I also like the speed. What the Audi is definitely lacking, this one specifically, is the whole like going around corners fast, but we'll get to that as the video goes on. So anyways, guys, I just want to unpack the reasons I bought this car, what's intriguing about this car, but more importantly, why you might be interested is some of those main faults that you want to be aware of if you're going to purchase this car. Think of it as a buyer's guide. I went through and researched a lot of this stuff. I've even experienced some of this, so it's fresh on my mind and I want to get it out to share with you. So that's where we're going to start. So the powertrain is what intrigued me about this car, the performance numbers that it has, the 4-liter twin-turbo hot V V8, which came out in late 2012. I think the S6 was the first Audi that had the that powertrain in it, and it's still in production and still in use today. Yeah, there's been some mild tweaks and some revisions. There is a difference between, say, an A8 and an S8, and there's a difference between the RS7. The differences at the end of the day are minimal, but they're also substantial. Turbo sizes, some internal differences as far as like forged versus not forged, different sensors here and there. So there are some differences, but the heart of the engine is very similar. And the other thing that is intriguing to me about this car is the ZF 8-speed, which I feel is probably the best modern day transmission, even current day, that was in my 2022 BMW M240i. It's been in my Jaguar F-Type R, and it's now in this. So it's definitely a transmission that I'm a big fan of. So when I started to research this car, there's one major thing that stood out to me that almost immediately turned me off.
And what was that? The fact that you bought a 2015 Audi that is known to be one of the most unreliable and expensive to repair vehicles on the road?
No, but you know, that could be a point of conversation. I will add that this is my favorite view of this car, is the rear end. A lot of people love the D4 here. I'm not a massive fan of the front end, I'm not gonna lie, but I love the rear end of this car. It looks really elegant. So the engine, and what almost completely turned me off on this car, is the fact that there was a massive failure that had been reported from early low mileage cars, and that is the oil filter screens. What I learned when I started to research a little further is that in late March of 2022, there was a massive recall affecting all 26,000+ of these 4-liter twin turbos, that Audi was making the repair on the oil filter screen. Essentially, the filter screens leading up to the turbo would clog, and that would lead to a complete failure of the turbo.
I didn't hear that it would clog. I heard that the turbo would suck it straight into the turbo and then just kind of grenade everything.
That was something that could happen, but ultimately they would clog and the turbos could seize up. There are worst case scenarios that could lead to complete turbo and even engine failure. So it became a recall when it was observed that this could be a safety issue, and that's when that took place. So all of these 4-liter twin turbos back to 2012 we're able to get not only this repair done, but if issues were found with the turbo, those turbos could be replaced as well. In addition, Audi was standing by their quality of vehicle and putting a warranty on both of those turbos for 10 years, 120,000 miles. That is, of course, assuming there are 0 modifications done to the powertrain in any manner. If you have any of those modifications done, or if you took it upon yourself to replace or try to repair those oil filter screens prior to, you're out of luck in that regard. So that leads me to my search of looking for a completely bone stock, one owner, low owner car that has an extremely well documented service, and that's why I ended up with this one. But there is more to the story here. So I have relationship with someone who is very familiar with the brand, a few people that are very familiar with the brand. Had some conversation with them about things to look for, suggestions, stuff like that. So I was also looking for oil change frequency that was below the manufacturer recommendation, which is like close to 10,000 miles, or it is 10,000 miles. What the experts would say is you change the oil on these for 5,000 miles, because if you don't, there's the possibility of that timing change stretching, and that could be a pretty big repair that no one wants to deal with. So that was another thing I was mindful of, is more oil changes than what the manufacturer would recommend, which again leads us to the vehicle we're standing in front of. You get into the faults of the car, and this is going to sound like a lot, but I'll get to the good at the back end of this. There's a lot of things that are similar to luxury brands, but also just vehicles that are aging, and I have already experienced this in this 50,000 mile 2015 that we are standing by.
What's that, depreciation?
No, not the depreciation, because let's come on. We're talking about a $105,000 car right here, this one. They can be slightly less or slightly more, but we paid right at 30,000 miles for this 40,000 mile. We paid $30,000 for this 40,000 mile low owner, extremely well maintained with brand new turbos. I didn't mention that, but this one actually has brand new turbos at 40,000 miles. We paid $30,000 for this $105,000 car. So to me, that is what is really intriguing, is you get that experience of that 6-figure car for a fraction of the price. Yeah, it depreciated. Yeah, it's still going to depreciate more, but I'm all about the experience, and I'm going to enjoy that in the meantime. Prior to Austin's interruption and my squirrel moment there, I was going to talk about some of the plastic components, and this isn't specific to this brand. We could go down the list of just about every luxury brand and the plastic components that are used associated with the cooling system. Even brand new manufacturers, brand new model years have similar issues. It's plastic, it's hot, it expands, it contracts, it's gonna age and wear with time. Think of that as a normal wear and tear item. You're dealing with a luxury brand, you're dealing with a foreign brand. If you're gonna go to the dealer, it's gonna be extremely expensive. So expensive, in fact, that you're not going to want to pay it. So we're talking the water pump, which is a known failure. Been there, done that. The pipes associated with the water pump, which are all plastic, but the biggest point of failure is the thermostat. That is an inspection point you should be mindful of if you are looking at these. Slightly different location on the driver's side here in the US. Driver's side, back side of the motor, water pumps on the front driver's side of the motor. You want to look at that thermostat for it possibly leaking. Extremely common. Repair and replacement part. I would say that you need above average skill to do these repairs, but they are doable DIY. It's not for the beginner, but they are repairs that can be done from a mechanically inclined individual. And that is the intriguing part to me. Is for me personally, I view the common repairs that are needed for this car as something that I can take on. I will be challenged, I'm not gonna lie. There are gonna be some of the repairs or the maintenance items that I will encounter that will be challenging. But I fully believe I will be able to do them, especially with this strapping young man, my son, with his mechanical ability to help out. A lot of stuff, guys, that you need to be mindful of and aware of is just over maintenance. So you want to make sure you're changing your spark plugs and your coil packs out on a really regular basis. Again, more frequently than the manufacturer recommends. The 5,000 mile full synthetic oil changes, which I can tell you the dealership will charge you about $260, but I personally just did that. We're gonna have a squirrel moment. I'm good at these. Squirrel moment. I personally just did one myself like 2 days ago, and it was 9 quarts of oil. Holy crap, right? A lot of freaking oil. The oil filter, and I was about $70 to get the job done. The other thing that's intriguing about this, which this caught me off guard, Audis are known to have the oversteer aspect, meaning the front end will push when you push it into a corner versus the back end getting happy. Well, I have never seen an oil pan so close to the front of the car. It's like bumper radiator oil pan. So that motor is really forward in this car, which that leads to that whole
it also
oversteer.
leads to the transmission being further forward.
Right, that was crazy. Like I took the second panel off when I was changing the oil, thinking that's where it would be, and I was like, this looks a lot like a transmission, which that's where that ZF 8-speed is. And I'm glad you brought that up, because ZF and Audi say that that is a non-serviceable, fully sealed transmission. But one thing that is very important with how old these cars are getting and how much power they have and all those multiple clutches in that transmission is you need to change the fluid. It's a non-serviceable transmission is the way it is described, but it needs service, it needs a fluid change. Expect to do that on the older models like this one around 50,000 miles, and on a newer model you definitely want to get it done 60, 75,000 miles type of deal. So again, regular maintenance at the end of the day, spark plugs, coil packs, oil changes, fluid changes, your differentials, you want to make sure that fluid is changed. All this stuff can be expensive, but I've also found that you can find affordable parts, both OEM and non-OEM, with items such as brakes. We're talking about a 4,600 pound car. That's a lot of weight to push around, and this will be the talking point here for a second. Over 400 horsepower, over 500 with a tune on the A8 here, which we'll talk about the DS1 tune here in a future video. So if you're a fan, if you're intrigued, if you're interested in that, make sure you like and subscribe this video so we can continue to provide some content on the A8 and the things we're doing behind the scenes. If you guys don't like the video, if you don't like the content, then we're just going to move on to a different topic. We'll still enjoy the car, so show us some love if you would in that area. So the brakes are expected to need to be changed every 35 to 40,000 miles. Obviously, that depends on your driving style, but I have learned myself it is a very easy job to do. You do need to plug into the computer to release the rear brake. Besides that, it's just a common brake job that you can do fairly easily. But know that you're gonna have to change the brakes, and you're gonna have to change them often. The dealer quoted me $3,600 for a full brake job. This is a job that can be done for the average Joe off the street, being wise with waiting for parts to show up and whatnot, for under 500 bucks, maybe slightly over depending on where you live and what you're after. But just know that all of this stuff can be affordable, but a big part of it has to be DIY. Sticking with that weight theme for a second, we have to talk about the air suspension. Yes, we are on air, which is great for the plush ride, the ability to adjust the ride height easily, especially if you want to go low. You can just change out those links and it's very easy to do. But that air suspension, like any vehicle that has air suspension, is going to fail at some point in time. That will be a costly repair. I'm not looking forward to that one. Depending on your driving style, the climate that the car is in, that could occur at 100,000 miles, it could occur at 60,000 miles, or heck, I've even seen stories of 170, 180,000 miles on the original air suspension. Let's not forget the actual suspension components, the multi-link suspension. That is a big one as well, with the weight of the car, with the power of the car. That is something you want to be mindful of if you're test driving. Listening for noises, listening for clunks. That is something that will need to be addressed, again, around that 100,000 mile mark, 120,000 mile mark, depending on how the car is driven. Is when you can expect to start to see some of those maintenance items needing to be addressed. Sticking on the weight theme, there's an active motor mount, meaning this thing is making decisions on how to keep this thing stable and smooth, zipping down the Autobahn at high rates of speed. The motor mounts are a known failure that will need to be addressed at some point in time. The passenger front in the US, I've read that that is the only one that really needs to be changed out, and if you change that one out, you should be good. It's not necessarily a small job, but again, it's a DIY job for a advanced mechanically inclined individual. So that's a lot of stuff. There's a few other small things. There's a lot of electronics in this car, obviously. So you've got heated seats and cooled seats and 4-zone climate control and like 18-way power seats, all sorts of stuff. Massage seats and screens that go up and down and heads-up display. And there's all sorts of stuff in this car, which obviously that leads to the possibility of some electronic issues, some blown fuses. That is pretty low on the list of things that I'm personally worried about, but I do know and expect that I might need to be hunting some fuses down or something like that at some point in time. Brakes, tires, suspension components, we got all that stuff covered. Guys, a lot of normal wear and tear, but you do have to go into purchasing this car understanding that if you're going to go to a shop and ask someone or expect a repair bill from someone on any of the items that I noted, is it's going to be spendy, because they're going to get their full retail price for parts and labor. There's usually a lot of items that need to be disassembled in order to reach the item that needs repair. So definitely keep that stuff in mind. All right, so why would I choose this with all this in mind, right? We have the 17-foot car that can get 30 miles to the gallon zipping down the highway. I've got 4 seats that are massaging. I can do 0 to 60 in the low 4-second range right now. I can get even better than that with a few more add-ons here. So why would I buy this car? The fact of the matter is that this car actually has a really good reputation for being reliable. Especially after the oil screen filter has been addressed, the motor is known to be pretty rock solid. Yes, you have to maintain this car. This is not a car that you can neglect maintenance on. This is not a Toyota Camry that you can go 50,000 miles without an oil change and run it 3 quarts low. This is a car that you have to stay on top of maintenance. If you do stay on top of the maintenance, and if you do address the items that pop up, you're gonna have an awesome motoring experience, and that's why I like it. I like the sleeper aspect, I like the comfort aspect, and ultimately will keep you guys in tune with how the ownership experience goes on this A8L, but know that that 4-liter is in a lot of different motors. The weight of the car spreads across a few of the other brands. A lot of stuff I've said about this car is similar to the S8, the RS7. There's some more dramatic differences, as well as the S6, S7. But there's a lot of similarities as well. Guys, thanks for tuning into the video today on Performance on Wheels. Austin, I'm sorry that I just talked everyone's ear off here. Yep. You're gonna have to check out his video on his. Yeah, you're gonna have to check out Austin's video here on his Corvette we got here that we're gonna get after. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.